こんにちは、日本語とニコラです。Hello and welcome to Japanese with Nick. In this video, I will be covering verb conjugation, and I will also be introducing all the verb types that you have to know at this stage of your Japanese. So let's get straight into it. At one point when you were learning hiragana, you have to have seen a hiragana chart. Notice how when you read from it, it goes a, I, U, E, O, ka, ki, ku, ke, ko, sa, shi, su, se, so. All of them rhyme with a, I, U, E, and O. And this is done for a reason, and you'll see why when I show you how to conjugate verbs. But before I get to that, I need to tell you about the types of verbs first. We'll come back to this hiragana chart later. All Japanese verbs end with an U sound. It doesn't have to necessarily be the U hiragana that it ends with. It can be tsu, because tsu has an U sound at the end of it too. And this goes for all other ones like bu, mu, ku, ru, su, etc. So it's not always an U hiragana at the end. It just has to end with an U sound, like taberu, to eat, miru, to see, nomu, to drink, yomu, to read. Now I'm going to tell you 3 different types of verbs that we can conjugate. So our verb types are regular verbs, in other words, GODAN verbs, iru-eru verbs, aka ICHIDAN verbs, and iru-eru exceptions, for example, kaeru, which I'll get back to in a second. Go in GODAN means 5, so you can basically just say that GODAN verbs are 5-step verbs. And the ichi in ICHIDAN means 1, so you can say 1-step conjugation. Iru-eru verbs are just verbs that rhyme with either iru or eru. Both of these conjugate in a characteristic way, so you can have regular verb conjugation and iru-eru verb conjugation. And an iru-eru exception verb is just an irregular verb. Iru-eru exceptions end in iru or eru, but they conjugate like a GODAN verb. For example, kaeru ends with eru, but you would conjugate that to kaerimasu, kaerimashita, kaerimasen, kaeranai, etc. You don't have to know what I'm talking about just yet, but it'll all make sense by the end of this video. So now I'm going to actually teach you how to conjugate these verbs, and I'm going to bring back the hiragana chart. First, I'll be showing you how to conjugate GODAN verbs. Now, when you're conjugating, the aim is to get a certain form of that verb. It can be the negative present, or the polite past, or the polite present future, or the short, aka informal negative, anything like that. And for GODAN verbs, to conjugate, you move up and down the hiragana chart. Our example verb will be aruku, to walk. Now, when you conjugate, you're looking at the ending of that verb. In this case, aruku ends with a ku, so let's look at the ku column. Earlier I said that you conjugate by moving up and down the hiragana chart, but this hiragana chart moves side to side, so let's just move side to side. Now, what do I even mean by moving side to side or up or down? I'm sure a lot of you will have heard in anime or just somewhere on the internet the mas form, arimasu, or kakimasu, or arukimasu, and this is called using the mas stem. Let's take aruku for example. If we put mas onto aruku, it will now be the present or future tense of walk. Unfortunately, you cannot have arukumasu. You have to do something with the ku first, and that is to turn it into a I sound by moving side to side on the hiragana chart. As you can see, to the left of ku is ki. So you turn the ku into ki and then add your mas, arukimasu, which means in a polite way, I will walk or I walk. When I say I walk, I mean, for example, a daily routine or a routine that you're doing this walking. For example, every day I walk. Mainichi ni arukimasu. And in case you're wondering, well, how do I say I am walking? Well, that's a whole different verb form, which is the te form, which we can't conjugate from here. However, it would sound like aruiteimasu. Alongside mas, we have other forms that we can do with mas. For example, mashita, which is the polite past form, masen, which is the polite negative present or future, and masen deshita, which is the polite negative past. There's also other forms that we can make, such as the informal negative, which isn't masen, but nai instead. To be specific, it's a form plus nai. So let's try it by ourselves to make the short negative, aka won't walk, with nai and the a form. If aruku ends with a ku, then we have to go to the a form of the k section. So we go to ka. And like it says on the screen, won't walk informally is a plus nai. So if you change aruku's ku into a ka, you get aruka, and then you add your nai, and you get arukanai. The next form is the volitional form, which basically means let's do something. I'll tell you the polite way to say it and also the informal way to say it. To make the volitional form, you have to take ku to the ko form and you have to add u on the end. This would give us aruko, which means let's walk. Since mas is already in its polite form, we can take any verb that's already in its mas form, for example, arukimasu, and make it let's walk together politely. You do this by taking arukimasu and making the mas into masho. Now I remember this because isho means together, so it's like walk together. Now you can also conjugate to the ke form, which is the command form, the hypothetical if form, and the potential can form. But I'm not going to cover those because I feel like they're unnecessary. Instead, I have different ways to show the potential, hypothetical, and command form. The command form is also known as the te form, and if I wanted to give you a command to walk, I'd say aruite. In summary, Godan verbs can conjugate to 5 different forms: the a form, e form, u form, e form, and the o form, which is why they're 5-step verbs. We didn't do the e form because it's the hypothetical, potential, and imperative, aka command. And I also didn't cover the u form, which would have been the 5th. Technically, you can't conjugate to the ku form or the u form because, well, u form is just its dictionary form. Aruku means to walk. You're not conjugating anything with it. That's just how it is in the dictionary. It doesn't really mean anything besides to walk. It's not specifying who's walking, are you walking? It doesn't specify anything. And by the way, kuru, which means to come, and suru, which means to do, are both irregular and they don't follow any pattern. And now I'll give you some sentences so that you can have an idea of how everything is used. A quick recap, basically. Finally, after 7 minutes of talking about the Godan verbs, we can now move on to the ICHIDAN, aka iru eru verbs. This one will be short and sweet because you don't have to move up or down the hiragana at all. You kind of just do one thing and then add an ending. And I'm just reminding you, iru eru verbs rhyme with iru or eru. Okay, so the basic general rule for iru eru verbs is dropping the ru and then adding whatever ending it is that you need. Let's take miru, to look. If I wanted to make the polite present or future, aka the mas form, I would just cut the ru off completely and then add my mas, masen, mashita, or masen deshita. So actually we can say bye-bye to our hiragana chart because we don't need it anymore. Man, that's a lot of free space. I'm just going to give you all the forms straight up. So, the first form, which is its dictionary form, is no change. Miru in its u form is just miru. It's just dictionary form. The polite mas forms, which just cut off the ru and then add your endings, would be mimas, mimasen, mimashita, and mimasen deshita. Now, the short negative, aka informal negative, would be cut the ru and then add nai. So, miru would be mi, so minai, won't look. And just like with Godan verbs, I'll mention the hypothetical, potential, and command forms in a different video. And lastly, the volitional, which is let's do this, which would be cutting the ru and then adding yo, and u. So, miru would first become mi by dropping the ru, and then adding yo and u, mio. Let's look. Informally, of course. Because let's look formally or politely would be mimashou. And that's pretty much all you need to do for Godan and iru eru verbs. But now I'm going to list the 12 most common exceptions for iru eru, which are Godan, but they end in iru or eru. So they go like this. Hairu, to enter. Hashiru, to run. Iru, to need. Kairu, to go home. Kagiru, to limit. Kiru, to cut. Shiaberu, to talk. Shiru, to know. Keru, to kick. Suberu, to slide. Aseru, to rush. And heru, to reduce. For practice, I'm going to put some English sentences on the screen, and in the comments, if you want to test yourself, you can try and translate them. And if you get anything wrong or make any mistakes, then I will be sure to give you feedback. Again, if you have any questions, leave them down below and I will respond to them. So now we have covered everything and it's the end of the video. If you made it this far, thank you so much, and also thank you so much for all the nice comments on my last video. If you guys have any specific video ideas or if you guys have trouble with a certain topic, then just comment down below your idea and I will probably make a video about that. Thanks for watching. じゃあね!